Hello, friend. This is Kerry Pharr. Welcome to In Your Corner. This podcast today is for those of you who have been betrayed. I had an uncle that was married for something like 30 years, and he trusted his wife explicitly. And one day she ran off with another man that she'd been high school sweethearts with, 34, 35 years before. And it devastated my uncle. And he never remarried the rest of his life. And so I know what some of you are going through, and those of you who have been betrayed, the closer the relationship was, the more it hurts. So I understand the pain that you're going through. And I want to talk to you today about how to overcome that pain, that sorrow, and maybe that shame that you're going through today. They say the saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. Your enemies can't betray you. It always comes from friends and loved ones. And that's what's so devastating. My story, I had many betrayals in my life. A lot of situations I won't talk about where I loaned people money and then never heard from them again. But I was a boxing coach for over 20 years of my life, and there was a young man that I had started training when he was 8 years of age. His dad brought him into the gym when he was 8 years of age, and I trained him throughout his teenage years, and we won 4 national championships together. He was such a good prospect that 2 years when he went to the Nationals, he knocked out every opponent that he faced in the local tournaments, the district tournaments, the national tournaments, the regionals, the whole 9 yards. And, I was able to negotiate a contract with him with one of the biggest promoters in America, and when he turned professional. And we had him on television for his first 4 fights. And I'd spent, a lot of money with the young man over the years and was very close to him, and I thought to his father. Well, at the time, my first wife, Diane, was in the hospital, literally laying on her deathbed, near death. And this was, 20-something years ago, so we didn't have cell phones in those days. When I went home, I pushed the button on this little machine that we called a codophone. And I had a message there, and it was from this boxer's father, who I knew very well because I'd spent, 11 years working with his son. And he said, Kerry, he said, you've got too many problems. We're going to leave you and go somewhere else. And at the time, we thought the young man had the potential to be $1 million fighter. So I went back to the hospital, and my wife was just a day or two away from dying. And I told her what had happened, and she said, Kerry, you've worked with these fighters all these years, and so many of them have hurt you. She said, I think you should get out of the sport. And a day or two later, she died. And this family was so distraught over what happened, they never realized that she was going to die, that they couldn't even come to the funeral because of what they had done to me. And, I won't bore you with the rest of the story, but I just want you to know that I had been rejected by this family, and the young man did end up fighting for a world championship several years later. He didn't end up making the type of money that we thought that he would, and the guy that did manage him, I heard, ended up spending a couple $100,000 developing him, so I could have never done that. So it ended up being the best thing for me, because I would have never gotten out of boxing had it not been for this, and I wouldn't be doing television around the world and radio broadcast or podcasts as well. So here you are. You've been betrayed by someone you love. Maybe somebody divorced you. Somebody stabbed you in the back, cheated on you, was a traitor, and it hurt you deeply. And somebody can stab you with a knife and that wound will heal. But when they hurt the heart, that lasts a lifetime. And I understand how you feel, because I was in a deep state of depression after this happened to me. And I want to share with you what I did to overcome this. And to do that, I've got to go over to what we call the Bible, the good book, because I think the greatest instruction in the world is right there. And, you know, Peter was one of the Lord's disciples, and he came to Jesus and he said, Lord, he said, how many times should I let my brother sin against me and I still forgive him? Should I forgive him 7 times? And the Lord said, no, Peter, he said, you need to forgive him 7 times, 70 times. And so, you know, that's a lot of times. That's over 400 times that you should forgive somebody that has offended you. Now, he goes on to talk about this man that owed his Lord. In biblical days, a Lord was maybe a master that, you know, ruled over a great group of people. But this man owed him so much money that he would never, ever be able to repay that money. And so he went to his Lord, and the servant actually fell down on his feet or on his knees and worshiped his Lord, saying, Lord, have patience with me and I'll pay you everything I owe you. And there was no way in this lifetime that he could pay the money back. But the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion and loosed him and forgave his debt. He forgave him of all this money. And so then this same servant went out and he found a man that owed him a very small amount of money. Something in today's dollars would be less than $20. And he told that man, he said, I want you to pay me what you owe me. And the man didn't have the money. And so this guy took him by the throat and cast him into prison, into a debtor's prison, until he should pay the money. Well, the servants of the master who had forgiven him of a debt that he could never repay went and told the Lord, the master, about that. And the master was very angry. And he took this man that he had forgiven much, and that same man wouldn't forgive little to someone else. And he took him and he said, the Bible says that he delivered him to the tormentors. So he put him in a prison where he would be tormented. Okay, my friend, here's the principle. You have been hurt. Somebody has divorced you, stabbed you in the back, stolen from you, took your husband, took your wife, whatever the case may be, and you're hurting. And it's been years upon years, and you just can't get over this pain. And I believe the reason you can't get over it is because you haven't been able to forgive. You see, the Bible says that there's a biblical principle here that if you're not willing to give, you're going to be turned over to the tormentors, or you're going to be tormented because you haven't been able to forgive. Well, you say, well, I could never forgive that sorry so-and-so, that low-down dirty dog that did that to me. Well, I understand exactly what you're saying. But Jesus Christ gave the perfect example of how we should forgive. He died on the cross while we were in sin so that we could be set free. And he said, you know, he forgave us of much, and we should also be willing to forgive others. Now, that word forgiveness is actually has the word give in the middle of it, F-O-R, and then the word G-I-V-E, forgiveness. And when you forgive somebody, you're actually giving them a gift. Now, you don't have to go to them and say, I forgive you, although I've done that to people. You don't have to socialize with them. When you forgive them, it doesn't mean that what they did was right. You know, you and I both know it was wrong. But it just well, here's the example. Whenever you don't forgive, you and that person that harmed you are like locked together like a ball and chain. And you can't get free because you're tormented. But when you just simply say, Lord, I forgive that person that hurt me, what that does is it doesn't exonerate that person that hurt you. It doesn't make them right. They're still wrong. All it does is it sets you free from them and the torment of being bound to that event is causing you. So, my friend, if you want to get over being betrayed, or being abused, or being beat up, or whatever the case may be, you have got to forgive. Even if you don't feel like it, all you have to do is say, Lord, I forgive that person for the harm they did to me. Doesn't mean you have to go sing Kumbaya with them around a campfire. Doesn't mean that you ever have to see them again. Doesn't mean that you have to socialize or fellowship with them at all. All you're doing is forgiving them so that you can be set free. And the Bible declares that whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And my friend, if you've never received forgiveness from Jesus Christ, He died to forgive you of all of the things that you've done wrong. All you've got to do is say, Lord, I know I've done wrong. I've sinned. Please forgive me. Come into my life. Lead, guide, and direct me. Be my Lord. And friend, He'll save you. And He'll forgive you of all the things that you've done wrong. And then when you die, you'll have a home in heaven for eternity. So I want to encourage you to forgive. And you'll be amazed when you forgive. I had to forgive this father and his son for what they did to me. And it hurt, but, a year or two after they did me this way, I just felt like I should write him a letter. And I sat down and I wrote him a letter. And I hadn't done anything wrong. And I wrote him a letter and I said, hey, if I've ever done you guys wrong, please forgive me. I almost couldn't write that letter, but I felt like God was telling me, write that letter. So I wrote it, and I forgave them and asked them to forgive me, and it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm so happy because now I'm serving God and doing things that I would have never probably done if I'd have stayed bound in that relationship with them and so many others. So friends, if we can help you, contact us. Go to our website, inyourcorner.info, and contact us, and we'd be happy to help you. Thank you, my friend, for tuning in today. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next edition of